welcome back to Between the Shadows. This is Kara.
This is Kristen. Good evening, everyone.
We are back talking more Dark Shadows.
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
What else?
Last time we left you guys, we had just talked about Cassandra, and she died.
Quote unquote, died.
Yeah. And that's pretty much where we left you, and I just really want to pick it up pretty quickly here.
Oh, yeah.
We do have a lot to talk about, the aftermath of her death.
Yeah, definitely got a lot of ground to cover, too. So.
Yeah. We are at Collinwood.
Yes.
Roger is there, and Nicholas comes into the drawing room where Roger is with basically, he has a note from Cassandra.
Yeah.
Basically saying that she's not coming back.
And she's leaving Roger.
And she's leaving Roger.
Yep.
So.
And Roger's not really sure if he's upset or okay with it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Roger's not one to show any kind of emotion anyways.
Right.
So he's always hard to read.
Right. He's not real sure if he's happy or upset or if he just doesn't care either way. You know, I think at this point Roger kind of feels relieved just because of that last conversation that they had. You know, it was just like, you never had time for me. Why didn't you ever choose me over anything else? And it just, I think for Roger, it was more of a relief, and he's just kind of ready to move on. But then he also tells Nicholas, like, don't feel like you need to leave this house, you know?
Right.
Like, you and I have become friends. There's no reason for you to leave. And, you know, Nicholas is like, well, I feel kind of awkward. And Roger's like, you don't need to feel that way. You're welcome here, no problem. And Nicholas was like, well, I kind of want to get a house of my own if you have any prospects. So that's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Roger's going to look into it for him. And
I think, didn't Nicholas already, like, kind of have one in mind? The house that he had? He already
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I probably something by the sea, you know, so I think Roger's kind of just, I'll be on the lookout. I'll see what we have available, you know, because the Collinses totally have property in the whole town. But this is when, you know, Julia kind of happens by, you know, and Barnabas comes in after her and immediately changes his tone once they realize they're not alone.
Right. And basically, I think Julia was asking Roger, you know, have you given up looking for her or whatever? Or,
The old woman, yeah.
The old woman. And he's like, yeah, I think so, la-ti-da. And he, you know, throws Cassandra's note in the fire. He gives it one more glance. He's like, you know what, screw it. And throws it into the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's when Julia happens by, and then they start talking for just a second, and that's when Barnabas literally, like, rushes in.
It's like, Julia, I'm so glad you're here. And then once he realizes they're not alone, he's like, oh,
Yeah.
Roger.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Roger goes upstairs at this point, and Barnabas tells Julia real quickly, he's like, she's at the old house. She died at the old house.
Right.
She's there right now. The body's there right now.
And Barnabas is afraid to feel relieved. He's afraid to feel free. You know, he was like, I'm afraid she's gonna come back. She's come back before.
Yeah, every time
keeps
she
coming
leaves,
back.
she comes back.
She's like, I really don't want this. You know, I don't know what to make of this. You know.
Yeah. So pretty much that they head back to the old house.
Right. Once they see the portrait in Vicky's room,
That's
and,
right,
and they see it's destroyed basically. There's no
image. It just looks all ripped up and old,
water
and
damaged and gross,
Yeah.
and you know. So this prompts them. Okay, I think we're okay.
So they head back to the old house to figure out what they're gonna do with Angelique's body.
Right.
When they walk into the house and discover it's gone.
Right.
What we saw right before that was Nicholas went to the old house, picked her body up out of the chair, and just took her off somewhere.
Just took her off. We
Just
don't
took
know
her
where.
away.
We don't know where just yet, but.
And so Barnabas expresses to Julia that he is almost afraid to feel free, like you said.
Yes, and especially now.
She could she could and would come back at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, we flash over to Adam here for a second.
Yeah.
And Carolyn has brought him his breakfast. He tells her that Cassandra discovered him last night and tried to kill him.
Right.
And she doesn't believe him and tries to tell him it was all a dream. And she leaves Adam's room, and Nicholas is there to meet her.
Yep.
And Nicholas tells her that Cassandra has left Roger and that he'll talk to Adam about his quote-unquote dream.
Right. We kind of skimmed over this part where Carolyn found out that Nicholas found out about Adam, but, you know, Nicholas pretty much assured Carolyn, hey, your secret's safe with me, whatever. So, I mean, Carolyn is just okay with this, I guess. I mean, not at first, but eventually she's like, okay, fine, whatever. As long as you're not telling.
He basically gives Adam like a little pep talk about needing to start acting like a man.
Yes.
And he knows he's in love with Carolyn. So he tells him to take what he wants and don't let anything or anybody stop you.
Yeah, this is kind of where, you know, Nicholas starts to corrupt Adam's mind,
Yeah, it is.
and Adam changes. He takes what Nicholas says to heart, like, quite a bit.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing how fast his attitude changed.
right. And
For still, as somebody still trying to learn how to act and what acting like this means and all that, like, he changed his tone pretty quickly.
yeah, he's at a very impressionable, I say age, he's a grown man, but mentally,
But he is, yes.
mentally at a very
Yes.
impressionable age.
In the next scene, we see Roger take Nicholas to the house on the property that he inquired about buying.
Yeah.
Nicholas's way to stay close to Collinwood, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Uses Cassandra possibly coming back as an excuse
For
to
sure.
stay close.
Definitely.
Roger tells him that he cannot sell him the house right now because of Elizabeth's condition, and it is her decision.
Right.
But he does let him stay there until they can get him an answer.
Right.
So, back to Adam here for a minute. Carolyn catches Adam in the hallway of his room.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas's speech got him very pumped up.
Yep.
And now he's talking very domineering with her.
Yeah.
Tries to lock her in his room so she won't leave.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tired of being alone. He even tells her that he loves her and that she must love him.
Mm-hmm.
Must love him. And she's trying to tell him that it would never work. And Adam takes it as it's because he is ugly.
Right.
And this is pretty much, I feel like, the first time that Adam's really acknowledged what he looks like.
Right.
You know, like,
Right. He's been reading all these books, and Professor's been filling him with all this knowledge and stuff.
I mean,
and
he sees handsome men in these books.
right, it was only a
and looks
matter of
at
time
himself. Yeah.
that he realized he was different. He looked different. He was different.
She demands that he let her out, and he throws the key down at her. Just throws it at her, really.
Mm.
She goes to pick it up, and he grabs her and forces a kiss on her.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
force kisses her.
It was a little bit uncomfortable to watch, just a little bit.
It was a little cringeworthy. It was. It's very
but we have to
uncomfortable.
understand, you know, where this was coming from,
Yeah.
why this happened, you know.
We flip over back to Nicholas.
Yeah.
He's in his new house, and he's in a room, what looks like the basement of his new abode.
Right.
And he opens up a door and reveals a coffin inside this random ass room in the basement.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
And you're like, holy crap. That's what I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Of course, it's Angelique inside.
Mm-hmm.
And he is speaking to her. He's like, sleep peacefully, Angelique. For unlike you, my plans will become real.
Oh, Nicholas.
Like, woo!
And now we don't know what Nicholas's plans are. We know that he's
we still
interested.
don't technically know what
It's like,
he's doing.
We know that he's interested in Adam because, you know, he could be the race of, you know, he's the race of the first of the race of a new species or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of guessing that that's part of his plan. We don't know what that's going to entail. We don't know any idea how Nicholas plans to do that because Lang is dead. Like, he was like, I can do many things. He's like, but I cannot bring a dead man to life. I can't do it.
Yes.
He was like, so I need to find the person who did this. Well, Eric Lang is dead. What he doesn't know yet is that Julia is the one who brought it to life. Julia is the one who continued the work.
Yeah.
So once they figure that out, once he figures that out, like, all bets are off.
So that's how that episode closes for us, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it
talk
just
about a
leaves you on a cliffhanger. Well, and like, you see Angelique in the coffin, and she's her old self again. She's not old. She looks like her old self again. At this point, like, we don't even know that. We just think she's dead. Like, we don't know
Right.
if she's gonna come back.
Right.
It just looks like he's just keeping a creepy body in the basement.
Right.
But
As a trophy, perhaps, you know.
yeah. But next episode, opening scene, Carolyn does make it out of Adam's room and immediately calls Professor Stokes.
Yeah, she
Immediately.
can't handle this.
She asked him to come over to deal with something that she just can't.
Right.
She's like, I can't deal with this.
But like she almost comes down, and I mean, it kind of seemed like this to me when I watched it. Like, he did force this kiss on her, and it made her so uncomfortable. She came running out of there with her hair all disheveled and like almost like in tears because she was, you know, traumatized by it.
Yeah.
Like, almost like the thing happened to her. I don't want to say it because I can't even get the word to come out of my mouth, but it almost like the thing happened, but it didn't. It was just a kiss.
Yeah.
But it made her that uncomfortable.
I mean,
and-
it just goes to show the more he learns, the more he could do.
Right, exactly.
And that's scary.
I think because all this time she's thinking, he's innocent, he's naive, he doesn't know the ways of the world, and then all of a sudden this physical thing he decided to do to her, and I think it just freaked her out. It took her by surprise. It caught her off guard, and it just completely shocked her. And I think that's why she's reacting the way she is.
Mhm.
So
And from that moment, they realize how rapidly he's progressing and learning.
Yeah.
And Vicky finds Stokes in the drawing room.
Yeah.
And tells him about Angelique's portrait fading and completely disappearing from the canvas.
Mm.
And that's when Carolyn enters. Tells Stokes that Adam just cannot stay there anymore with the way he has come to feel about her.
Right.
And she doesn't feel safe and definitely cannot handle it by herself.
Right. She's like, I don't want this to happen again. I don't even want to put myself in a position where it'll happen again.
Right.
So.
And we find out that Jeff and Vicky decide they are going to be married and pick the date of September 24th. And he gives her a beautiful ring and they kiss on it. Stokes goes up to see Adam
Mm-hmm.
and tries to explain and get him to understand why Carolyn does not feel for him in the same way.
Right.
And Stokes reminds him that it's only been 2 months since he came to be or met Barnabas Collins. Adam asks where he was before that, and Stokes finally tells him that he just did not exist before that.
Yeah. This was a very difficult. You can see it on Stokes' face as he's explaining it. It is such a difficult conversation.
He just doesn't know how to explain it. It's hard to
And
explain.
Stokes didn't want to be the one to tell him.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to tell you this, Adam. I don't know how to tell you in a way that you'll understand, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
And you can just, it's the pain on Professor Stokes' face as he's telling him, because he knows that this is going to be a huge shock for Adam. This is going to be something that is completely unpleasant for Adam to hear, but somebody has to tell him.
Yeah.
Because he deserves to know. And now that he's learning he's becoming a real man, he's starting to understand, he's starting to articulate how he feels.
Yes.
It's time that Adam knew. And unfortunately, that burden was put on Professor Stokes.
I mean, and he just basically gives it to him straight.
Yeah.
He doesn't, there's really no other way to tell him.
Right.
And so he does, and he tells him he was created by Dr. Lang, and Adam is just so upset, and he just tells Stokes to leave.
Right.
Just leave.
Right.
And Adam is starting to put together Lang's last words and what he
Right.
is to Barnabas.
It's incredible to me that Adam even remembered that, because it was at a time where he couldn't comprehend anything.
Yeah.
But he knew those words, if both live,
Yeah.
But he remembers those words and he's like, oh my gosh, and his still kind of infantile mind, but not really, because he's progressed so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I'm trying to put myself in that position, and I can't imagine
Yeah.
what has got to be going through Adam's mind. I was created to save Barnabas. I was supposed to be Barnabas, but now I wasn't expected to be me. It just
It's very hard to understand, let alone explain.
right.
Explain.
Like it hurts him so bad that he wants to kill himself.
Yeah, and that's what he does after Stokes leaves, basically. But
Right.
he's so upset that he attempts to hurt himself.
Right.
And at that moment, thankfully, Harry walks in with his food,
Yeah.
and he hides the knife behind his back.
Right.
Harry realizes the knife is missing from Adam's plate and sees that he's hiding it.
Yeah.
So Adam tries to stab himself, but Harry is able to stop him and get the knife from him
Right.
by some miracle because he's so strong.
Exactly. Yeah.
But he leaves to find Carolyn, and Harry finds Nicholas instead and tells him what has happened.
Mm.
So Nicholas leaves to go see Adam, and he finds him angry and frustrated, and he wants to die because of what he is.
Right.
After the conversation with Stokes.
And because Carolyn doesn't want him.
And Carolyn doesn't want him. And he's angry because he feels Nicholas's advice did not work on Carolyn.
Right.
So Harry tells Carolyn what has happened and that Nicholas is up with Adam right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's of course furious.
Mm.
So she comes in Adam's room and starts in on Nicholas.
Right.
And she is shocked to see that Adam is just fine and very calm after a chat with Nicholas. Like he's totally changed his tone and attitude.
Yeah.
Like he's just fine. Like nothing was ever wrong.
Right.
We see a little later Adam has left his room again.
Yeah. I mean, Adam escapes a lot.
Yeah. This time he goes to the old house and Barnabas is shocked to see him.
Mm.
Adam simply tells him that he will come in and they will talk. I am coming in,
Yes.
and we're going to talk.
And I mean, again, we mentioned in the last episode, Barnabas has not seen Adam since he escaped, from the chicken leg incident,
Yes.
And Barnabas is shocked because Adam is speaking in whole sentences.
It's been a long time since they've seen each other. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what, a month or two, maybe?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Sometimes
it's kinda vague.
Yeah, the timelines are very vague in this show. We all know this.
But it's been long enough. It's been long enough for Adam to learn, a few sentences, and he's just shocked. Like Barnabas is just shocked. He's amazed mainly on how much Adam's speech has developed
right,
in such a short time. So, it couldn't have been that long, obviously.
right.
Also, that he can think and put his thoughts and feelings into actions.
Right.
And he's still a little afraid of Adam, and Adam tells him he has every right to be, because if he doesn't give him what he wants, he could hurt and kill him.
Yeah.
So Barnabas asks who has been helping him, but Adam, of course, won't
Right.
say.
Right.
Adam tells Barnabas that he hurt him by not telling him that he is a creation.
Right. Like, I don't. For whatever Stokes told him about being an artificially made man, Adam didn't grasp that Dr. Lang was the one who did it. He
Yes.
thought Barnabas did.
He was
And
the
that's
first
why.
thing that he saw when he opened his eyes.
Right.
And he just held on to that.
Like Barnabas tries to tell him, I didn't do this. He was like, Dr. Lang did. He was like, I don't know Dr. Lang. All I know is that when I opened my eyes, you were there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And he tells Barnabas as well, it's like, he hurt him by not explaining to him about what he is,
right,
and that he is ugly and everyone is afraid of him.
right,
And Barnabas reminds him that it was, like you said, Lang's project, not his.
right,
Adam never met Lang, and the first thing he'll always remember is Barnabas.
right.
Always.
Mhm.
And this is where he finally makes his demand.
Mhm.
Barnabas must create him a woman.
Oof. That was incredible. I mean, and Barnabas was pretty shocked by that too. It was like, how could you possibly come up with that
Like,
on your
how
own?
in the world do you expect?
And not only was like, I can't do that for you. That's impossible. How did you come up with that on your own? There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way you came up with that on your own.
Absolutely.
Who's been planting ideas in your head?
Absolutely. Barnabas does his best to convince Adam that it's just impossible for him to meet his demand.
Yeah.
And he tells him Dr. Lang died 2 days before Adam came to life.
Mm.
And he tells him that he was only a part of the experiment, just as him.
Right.
Adam finds out that Julia is the one that made the experiment happen after Lang's death.
Right.
So he tells Barnabas that if he creates a mate for him, that he will take her and he'll go away and never return, never bother him again.
Right.
He'll just go away forever. And the moment Willie walks in, it almost shits at the sight of Adam. Like, for real.
He really does.
He's like, oh. In the end, Barnabas tells Adam again that it is just impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam tells Barnabas he will be very sorry for his decision
Yeah.
and leaves.
Yeah.
And Willie wants to chase after him and shoot him, but Barnabas stops him. And they just won't be safe until he's dead.
And it's because they didn't hear the message, they don't know that killing Adam means
Yes.
killing Barnabas.
Yes. And of course, Vicky is walking through the woods at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Adam is following her and sees her go into the old house, and he watches from the window outside.
Mm-hmm.
And Vicky is there to tell Barnabas of her engagement to Jeff Clark.
Yep.
And they are very good and close friends, and she knows how he feels about her, and she had to give him the courtesy to tell him to his face.
It's like we've discussed before. It was like Vicky still had strong feelings for Barnabas.
Yeah.
Like still, I think in some way, shape, or form loved him,
Yes.
but definitely cared about him enough to take the time to go down to the old house because she couldn't simply call him up. But I think even if she could call him up, she wouldn't have. She would have gone down to the old
Yes.
house in person to tell him.
Yes.
And
Barnabas very graciously,
graciously.
Barnabas very graciously,
graciously.
And Barnabas very graciously gives her his best
You got
wishes.
it. Good job.
And he walks her to the door.
Yeah.
And they say goodnight. Adam then continues to follow Vicky back through the woods, and she notices him, and she tries to get away, but of course he grabs her up.
Yep.
She's the worst at getting caught.
She really is. I mean,
The best at
God
getting
bless
caught,
her.
I should say. The best at getting caught.
She is.
But
Because Vicky wouldn't hurt a fly, and she expects that everyone else is the same, and you know.
Jeff is waiting for Vicky to get back from the old house. And side note, they always show you the clock.
Yeah.
It's 11:35 p.m., mind you, and they still haven't eaten dinner. I'm
They
like,
must be living in Spain or something. I don't know.
But Jeff decides to go out and look for Vicky at this
Yeah.
point. Side note, a Peter Bradford moment.
Yes.
Carolyn tries to go with him to show him the way to the old house because, to her knowledge, he's never been there. He tells her he knows the way, but for a moment couldn't say how or why. But tells her Vicky gave him directions once.
I bet she did.
I know, but you could just see it. He was like, I'm not sure how to get. I don't know how I know how to get there.
Right.
I just do.
Yeah. I mean, and this keeps happening. Jeff keeps having flashes, and
Yeah.
eventually
They're
we
getting
get
more and more and stronger.
eventually we get a straight answer about Jeff. But
Yeah. But Adam takes Vicky to his room in the West Wing. And Vicky realizes where she is, and she's been there before. And she demands to know why she's been captured. And Adam tells her as long as she doesn't scream for help or try to run away, he'll let her go when he gets what he wants. And Jeff gets to the old house and is kind of hostile when Barnabas answers the door.
Right.
And he tells Jeff that Vicky left a while ago, and Jeff said he didn't run into her on the way over in the woods either. So Barnabas to himself starts to think that Adam may have gotten her, but doesn't want to say anything.
Right.
Assures Jeff that if he thought Vicky was in any danger, that he would say so.
Right.
And they leave in search of her together.
Right. So Barnabas gets to Collinwood, and Carolyn is there, and he once again demands, "Where is Adam? Where is he?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Look, I told you that I didn't know." And he was like, "Look, Vicky might be in danger here. You've got to come clean, And she's disappeared between here and the old house, And he tells her that Adam has visited him as well, right before Vicky went missing, and right before Vicky got here.
Right.
And in the end, she still refuses to confess, and that she is helping Adam, but she does go straight to his room to check on him. And this time he meets her at the door, and they talk in the hallway because he's hiding Vicky in there.
Right.
He lies to her about leaving to go to the old house, and he tells her that Barnabas is lying. He's not telling the truth. And she finally takes notice that Adam did not invite her in, but Vicky wasn't in sight. She does end up questioning, about Vicky. And the last time he saw Vicky was when she visited him in jail. He was like, I haven't seen her since that moment.
Wow. Yeah.
And she tells him that she'll see him in the morning with his food, and we see that Adam stuffed Vicky in a closet.
Yeah.
And Vicky's very, except I think all the times that she's ever been captured, she's usually been very cooperative.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the time that she came running out of the old house because she thought there was a fire,
Oh my gosh.
But other than that, I mean, Vicky's been very cooperative and up until this point, especially, with all the being captured and stuff. But
yeah. And I love this part because we flash to Barnabas and Jeff, and they're still out in the woods looking for Vicky.
Right.
And the dogs start howling.
Yes.
And Barnabas is feeling so uneasy because he doesn't know why. Because it's not him.
Like, well, it ain't me.
It's not me.
He was like, the only time they do this is if there's a vampire nearby.
Yeah. He even asked Jeff if he hears them too, and Jeff finds it a weird question.
Like, so what?
Like,
so what? The dogs are howling. So this brings us back to Nicholas Blair.
Yeah.
And, he's doing some work in his house. He's hired a handyman by the name of Tom Jennings. And this is the era of Tom and Christopher Jennings. And I love this because I love the Jennings boys. I love them.
Me too.
And so Tom Jennings is a handyman that Nicholas Blair has hired to help him do some work around the house, And so we come back to this basement room where we have gathered that Angelique is resting in her coffin, And Tom discovers this room.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the night, he's like, what else do you need from me, Mr. Blair? I'm about to take off, and
I mean, he kind of just barges his way into the coffin.
he does, yeah, and sees the coffin, and Blair is like, I don't know, it was here when I moved in,
Of course, he starts asking the normal questions.
Of course.
And like you said, he just gives them the normal answers.
Right, and it rolls off of him so well. He doesn't stumble over, he's like, it was here when I moved in,
Yeah, it was just here.
And so Tom's like, yeah, okay, and makes his exit, and Nicholas implies that, he
to himself.
To himself is, the audible thinking is like, well, he's gonna have to pay for seeing that. I didn't want you to have to see it. Didn't want this to happen this soon, and we're like, what? And so Tom is walking through the woods and still kind of freaked out, still pondering, still consumed by what he saw,
Yeah.
because why would the Collins be hiding a coffin there for any, for what reason could they possibly have? And he was like, Blair's got to be lying, Nicholas has got to be lying, and he's like, something weird is going on. And then we hear rustling among the trees, and those of us who have seen Dark Shadows up until this point usually know that's the sign that somebody's about to get got.
Yeah. And at this point, we don't get to see who it is.
Yeah.
Yet. And then the scene quickly flashes to Jeff, still looking for Vicky. When he hears the scream, it's Tom.
Right.
And according to Jeff, he is dead.
Right. Right.
So Jeff, he sees the vamp wounds on his neck.
Right.
And at this point, Barnabas has made it back to Collinwood, still freaked out by the dogs howling, and he just knows something is happening, to him or not.
Right.
He informs Julia that Adam has kidnapped Vicky and that he wants them to make him a mate in exchange for Vicky.
Right.
And at that point, Jeff comes in from the woods, gets on the phone immediately with the sheriff, and tells him that he's found a dead man. And he describes the wounds to them, and they know exactly what they're hearing.
Yeah,
'Cause
the
they've heard
looks
this
on their
before.
face. Oh my god.
We've been here before.
Like they both look at each other like,
They're like, oh my god.
And
So-
it's like Julia's looking at Barnabas is like, tell me this isn't you.
Yeah. And like once they're alone, Julia straight up asks Barnabas. He's like, if he had anything to do with it, and he doesn't, of course. And they
he's
just
like,
know there's another vampire out there. Question is who?
right. It's like he looked at you. It's like, did you have anything to do with this? He was like, no. She's like, do you know what that means? There's another vampire in Collinwood, and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah, but who?
But who? And that's yeah, you're right. That is the question, and it's a huge question. It's
Yeah.
like who could this possibly be?
God.
Because Barnabas first came to town, and everybody, it was an obvious answer. The new guy in town, he's the vampire.
Uh-huh.
It's very soap opera. It's the new guy in town,
Yeah.
but who's the vampire? Oh, and it's not Tom Jennings. He's the one who found the coffin. He's the one who got bit. So who is it? So they asked the question who. End of an episode. The next episode, Nicholas has come to see Adam, and he asks him where Vicky is, and Adam lies at first because he doesn't know if he can trust Nicholas completely, but says he doesn't know where she is, but eventually does show him that she's here. I stepped her in the closet, and he tells Adam that he'll help him use Vicky to get Barnabas to create him a mate. Nicholas tells Adam to keep her for just another day, and then they'll move her to Nicholas's house, and no one will ever find her there. And he supplies him with drugs that'll knock her out so he can move her. Jeff comes in and tells Carolyn that they've got a dead man in the woods, and it's Tom, and he did get a blood transfusion. He's just barely alive, so he's in the hospital.
Yes.
And Nicholas arrives to take Vicky to his house, and Adam demands to go with him and not harm Vicky. But Nicholas convinces Adam to stay put for the time being and leaves with Vicky. He's like, I'm not going to hurt her. It's all going to be okay. She's not the one we want. She's just a pawn,
Right. So Vicky awakens at Nicholas's house, and of course has no idea where she is.
This was a very clever ruse, by the way. I'm sorry. I just have to point this
Yeah.
out. Go ahead.
But she calls out for Adam, bangs on the locked door. She can hear the ocean outside, so she knows she's still close, like, to the water.
Right.
Nicholas is in the basement again with Angelique's coffin, and he tells her to rise again. I have further plans for you.
And you know what? We were talking earlier that we did, we saw Angelique earlier in her coffin. I don't think we did. I think this was the first time we saw her in her coffin. Like, we knew Angelique was there, but we didn't see her. Unless I'm crazy. Am I crazy?
I mean, you always get me questioning. I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
it's like I'm pretty sure this is how it was, but sometimes you watch it so many times, it all goes together. And I'm like,
But at any rate.
any rate. and this is where we finally get to see her.
Yes.
So you're probably right.
Okay.
Vampire and all. We get to see her teeth.
Yeah.
All that. And Angelique's like, I would have preferred death over becoming a vampire. And Nicholas was like, I'm sure Barnabas Collins said that many times.
Yes.
He's like, I enjoy the irony of poetic justice.
Yes. Okay. This takes me back to that scene with Joshua Collins.
Yeah.
Where Joshua Collins finds out that Barnabas is a vampire, and he was like, we thought you were dead, and Barnabas was like, I would rather be dead. I'd rather be dead than this.
Like, who wants to live like this?
Right.
The police end up showing up at Nicholas's house, to ask him some questions about Tom Jennings,
Mhm.
because that was the last place he was
There.
seen
Yeah,
before
exactly.
the woods. And this is basically Angelique's first alone encounter with somebody since becoming a vampire and feeling the craving.
Poetic justice,
Feeling
man.
the craving. And she invites him to sit next to her on the couch. And she starts to go in for him, and Nicholas comes in.
Yes.
And the officer tells him that Tom is in a coma and is not expected to wake up.
Mhm.
And just a couple of questions later, he leaves. And Nicholas scolds Angelique for what she was about to do with the officer.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't punish her, but tells her he needs her to visit Vicky and help assist him in his plans with her.
This was the other thing that Nicholas did. Not only did he, turn her into immortal, let her die, and then bring her back as a vampire,
Yeah.
but he's the one who's going to govern who she bites,
Yeah.
who she antagonizes, and it's, oh my gosh, Nicholas is not done torturing this
I was
girl
like, who
yet.
controls a vampire?
Exactly.
Nicholas Blair.
Nicholas Blair, the only one who probably could. I mean, it's insanity.
Gosh.
I mean, how far is Nicholas gonna go? And it's insane.
But this kind of freaked me out for a minute.
This was
next
the
scene.
clever ruse. It was.
Angelique goes to Vicky's room dressed as she would have been in 1795.
Oh my gosh.
Like in her garb, her curls.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sitting here looking at a picture of her now. That's how she went in there.
Yes, just like that. And Vicky, of course, is frightened to death.
Yes.
It thinks she's seen a ghost.
Mhm.
And Angelique tries to convince her she's real.
Mhm.
And she touches her to reassure her. And Vicky thinks she's dreaming and can't wake up. And Angelique asks Vicky for her engagement ring in order to help her get out.
Mhm.
She says she will give it to the man who gave it to her so it can lead him to her.
Okay.
Vicky won't give it to her.
Right.
And Angelique tells her that she will spend eternity in this room because she refused the only help she'll ever get.
Oh man.
And that scares Vicky enough, and she still doesn't trust Angelique, but she at least gives her the ring.
Right.
And Angelique asks for the name of Vicky's fiance, and she tells her Jeff Clark.
Ugh.
And she's like, there is no Jeff Clark. He does not exist. There is only Peter Radford.
Oh
and,
my
And she leaves.
Oh my.
Just
As
leave.
if Vicky's not already confused
Yeah.
about who Peter is, or who you see
Yeah.
about who
Peter
Jeff really
Jeff.
is. Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. I mean, she just leaves.
Yeah.
She's like, hold on, what?
Yeah.
But Adam meets Nicholas in the woods by the old house, and he goes to the old house to talk to Barnabas again.
Yep.
Tells him that he does have Vicky and that she is safe.
Mm.
Gives Barnabas her ring she gave to Angelique.
Yeah.
But he will kill her if he doesn't make his decision by the next night.
Right.
End of episode.
This brings us to the 24-hour mark since Vicky's disappeared.
Yeah.
And Barnabas is desperate to get her back. And he waits for Julia to arrive and tells her that they have no choice. They have to give in to Adam. They
Yeah.
have to do him. They have to give him what he wants. And Julia's like, no, I am not confident in this. I mean, when we did it with Adam, Lang did all the work. I just brought him to life, And they try one more attempt to get that to get the person that is putting the idea in Adam's head and get him to change his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention, on the other hand, they're still trying to figure out who this new vampire in town is.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jeff happens by the old house and talks with Barnabas and Julia and to talk about Adam.
Mhm.
He doesn't know much about him, but from the descriptions, he's pretty sure that he's Dr. Lang's creation.
Right. Right.
That Jeff, he's a smart one. And he's a hothead, but he's a smart one. But they lie to Jeff and they tell him that they didn't finish Lang's project and disposed of the body in an unmarked grave. But all Jeff needs is one good close look at Adam and he'll know. He'll know whether or not.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? That's how, when we talked about this in previous episodes, months ago, of course, but Professor Stokes figured it out that Adam was a man-made creation because he hypnotized Jeff, and Jeff recognized the hand.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Barnabas pays Professor Stokes a visit. They need his help getting Vicky back, and he tells them that Adam has kidnapped her. And Stokes admits that he is partly responsible for Adam knowing about his origin,
Yeah.
but he is not responsible for the idea of creating another human. He says he'll talk to Adam, but only for the sake of Vicky's safety and return, not for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't given him any answers. Why should he help them?
Just as much said so to them. He's like, you haven't given me shit. Excuse me.
You only come to me when you need something.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm tired of being out of the loop. So
Completely
thank
fair. It's like, don't cut. He's like, I swear I'm like a vending machine to you guys.
You. Yeah.
And even, And he warns them, even at his very best, it might not be enough to change Adam's mind.
Absolutely.
So he does go visit Adam and tells him that he knows everything and almost begs to know where Vicky is. And he asks to know who else has been teaching him, but Adam is firm and not telling him and not budging in his decision. Julia has returned from the hospital. She went to go see Tom. She couldn't get in. But one of the other doctors that worked there, who is working on Tom, said that the bite looked like it was an animal with fangs, and Stokes arrives. So I mean, all of their suspicions are becoming more and more relevant here.
Right.
And so Stokes arrives at the old house, and he says he did speak to Adam in hopes that he got through to him. He assures Barnabas that he is sure Vicky is safe and unharmed. Stokes tells them that if his last-ditch effort fails, he does believe that Adam will go through with killing Vicky. Therefore, their last choice would be to go through with the next creation. Like, they're running out of options here.
Yeah.
And Adam goes to Nicholas. I think Professor did get through to him just a little bit.
Right.
He did go to Nicholas and tell them that he needs to let Vicky go.
Yeah.
Because I think Professor did tell him, look, Vicky did nothing to you. You're better than this. You don't want to harm an innocent person. Especially if she didn't do anything to you.
Yeah.
And so Adam is like, this is wrong. She's innocent. She's never done anything to hurt me. And if if someone had done that to Carolyn, he couldn't take it. Professor also said that to him.
Right. He rationalizes with him very well.
He does, yeah. And he and Professor have that strong connection emotionally because Professor was nice to him,
It's like you just can't help feeling sorry for Adam in this aspect because the constant tug of war with his feelings between Nicholas and Stokes and all that.
Completely.
His thoughts and emotions is like Stokes is trying to teach him all good with Nicholas fighting it and manipulating him at every turn.
Yeah. It's really a tug of war on Adam's emotions and thoughts right now. And Professor's trying to be the good and, Nicholas is obviously, it's like those two little things you get on your shoulder when your conscience,
The devil and the angel.
Yeah. Professor Stokes is the angel, Nicholas is the devil,
Totally.
But these are two live people, playing tug of war with Adam here.
Yes.
And I don't know.
Adam makes his way back to the old house for Barnabas's final answer.
Yes.
And Barnabas looks at Julia for the answer, as it is she who will have to perform the whole experiment.
I mean, that's fair because, Barnabas can say sure, but Julia is ultimately the one that can say yes or no.
And the best answer she can give is she says, I will try.
Yeah.
I will try. She cannot guarantee it will work, but she will try.
Yeah.
Adam says he will not release Vicky until the experiment is complete. And Barnabas will not budge until she is released first.
Good on you, Barnabas.
Yeah. Adam gives in, but with the threat of killing her and everyone else if he is being tricked.
Yeah.
So, Nicholas and Angelique are looking into a mirror in a hallway.
I love this mirror.
in Nicholas's house and watching Vicky in her room through that mirror. They watch as Nicholas allows the door to Vicky's room
To be open. Yeah.
And Vicky makes her way downstairs to the front door, but it's locked. She goes into the drawing room and tries the window, it's locked. And tries another door, locked.
Yeah.
And she starts to hear the music of Josette's music box and a voice speaking to her.
We haven't heard that music box in a while.
Not in a while. And telling her that she's in the old house. And she knows it isn't Barnabas's voice, but the voice plays with her and says she does hear Barnabas's voice, and it tells her that she's in the old house and she must get back to Collinwood as fast as she can. Nicholas and his games.
Yes.
And always trying to show Angelique how it's really done.
Yes. It's true. It's like Nicholas is constantly showing his balls, like always.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Peeing on trees and
Nicholas goes to visit Maggie,
mm-hmm.
and she admits that she hasn't given his proposal for one of her pop's paintings really any thought.
Right.
She's been at the hospital a lot with Joe, who has made a full recovery and is being released.
He's been in the hospital this whole time. Adam must have done a number on him.
And speak of the devil, he happens to be the next one to knock on the door.
Yes.
Maggie goes to pour them all some sherry. And Blair makes small talk with Joe, and Nicholas makes the toast. To your future, Joe. May it bring you everything you deserve.
Oh, Lord.
I'm like, what did Joe ever do?
Joe's time on this show is very limited at this point. It's getting ready to come to an end.
But So there's that, and then we go back to Collinwood, and Jeff is on the phone talking to anyone really about any info on Vicky's whereabouts, calling anybody he can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And he hangs up, and Vicky comes right on in the front door.
Just like nothing has happened and no time has passed.
As he asks her where she's been all this time, and tells her he's been worried for 2 days that she was hurt or dead, with the police out looking for her.
Nicholas Blair made Vicky think that she was simply just coming back from the old house, like she had, because she was down there talking to Barnabas about the engagement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where Vicky's frame of mind is. She's like, I'm just coming back from the old house, and Jeff's like, you've been gone for 2 days, girl. Where you been?
And Jeff does point out, he notices that she was wearing her ring when she went to see Barnabas, and now it's gone.
Yeah. So.
And Joe, side note, really, Joe is never really the same after he comes home from the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, he is never really the same, in my opinion. And he's always been that knight in shining armor type, a little too shiny for me.
Yeah, he's a little meathead.
But, and he always has a twinge of overprotectiveness, not really jealousy.
Yeah.
Like with Carolyn, he just loved hard, and from her at least didn't get that love returned.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed the way he treated his and Maggie's relationship.
Yeah.
But now he's very defensive and easily jealous.
Yeah.
And what happens to him here a little later, he's like definitely never the same again.
Right, definitely.
Ever. Like, Nicholas returns home from Maggie's house, and he tells Angelique that her next victim will be Joe Haskell.
Well, yeah, because Joe Haskell is a threat, and Nicholas has a good way of
He's
getting
in
rid
my
of him.
way.
This brings us back to Julia. She's at the old house. She gets there, and she tells Barnabas that Vicky returned to Collinwood last night, and all she remembers is leaving the old house. But at least she's safe, which means that they have to hold up their end of the bargain now. And Julia, she just feels inadequate. She just doesn't feel like she can go through with it. And she's like, I can't even be. She's like, this is so complex. He was a brilliant surgeon. She's like, I can do surgery. I'm a surgeon, but I just don't know that I can do this. I just don't feel capable of what Lang did. What Lang was. I mean, Lang was more than just a brilliant surgeon. He was a scientist, a mad scientist, and tampered with death and tampered with the impossible, and he pulled it off. His creation did come to life.
Yeah.
And Julia's like, how am I supposed to stand up next to that? But this does become Julia's solo project.
Yes, it does. So Willie arrives from Lang's house with all of his journals from Adam's creation for Julia.
Yeah.
And they inform Willie that they're going to need his help.
Poor Willie.
To gather the body parts for the experiment, and of course Willie is like, hell no.
Yeah.
But they threaten him with going back to Windcliff if he won't help. And in this moment, decides to test this threat.
Yeah.
Willie refuses to help.
Yeah. Willie's like, I don't care. I will go back to Windcliff. It's like, you've made me do some horrible things over the years, but not this. I'm not doing this for you. Yeah. So I think, friends, that's probably a good place to stop for this episode, because we got this is the beginning of Julia's solo project, and there's a lot of info to go over, and so that's what we'll leave you with for tonight. But we just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We've got some big things in the works for Between the Shadows, and we can't wait to share them all with you. And we just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thanks for giving us your time. Reach out to us with comments, concerns, questions. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We are still at Between the Shadows 2021 at Gmail. Just reach out. We really love the comments. We really love the accolades. We even love the questions and the concerns, guys. We'll take it all. But until next time, guys, remember to keep it between us and the shadows. Good night.
Good night.
Here you are, Angelique, at your resting place. Your husband asked me if I knew where you were. You are here, where many things have begun to happen that you never dreamed of. Sleep peacefully, Angelique. Sleep peacefully. For unlike you, my plans will become real.
You've been listening to Between the Shadows, a Dark Shadows podcast.
All original Dark Shadows music, video clips, images, and media are the sole property of Dan Curtis Productions and is only used to promote Dark Shadows and should not be distributed, copied, or reproduced.